Hi there, my name is Lynn Walden, and for those of you who aren't familiar with my work on my website, this is the first installation of weekly self-awareness activities that I'm going to be posting based on the Intuitive Insight Oracle cards I've created. And this is my way of making sure that people who don't actually own the cards can still have access to one of the main functions that the deck provides, which is the format for a self-awareness exercise or a self-awareness experiment. It starts with 3 cards, a thought contemplation card, an attitude card, and an activity card. So I've said my prayers and set the intention to pull the cards that are going to be the most effective for the most people who look at this. Technically speaking, it's structured for the week of Monday the 25th to Friday the 29th, and there will be a debriefing at the end of it to help you get the most out of applying this experiment to your week. And it can be used at any point in time. It's simply that this is my way of keeping track of what we're doing. So the first card that I've pulled is pleasure. The second is compassion. The third is positive triggers. And I'm going to break it down for you in terms of how to apply it for your week. I'll show you the card in case you want to freeze frame and look at it, because for me, what is often really helpful is visually just noticing what jumps out of the card for me, because it's going to be specific to you in different ways. But I'll give you my basic interpretation of it so that you can then move from that point on. The contemplation card is pleasure. Now, the idea with these cards is the contemplation card is meant to be a thought that you just kind of have at the back of your mind, and you notice how it comes up during your week. So it's kind of like a background soundtrack, not meant to be really analyzed and thought about every day, like, oh, pleasure, what does it mean? Here we go. Pleasure. Pleasure is often considered to be frivolous. We've been taught both overtly and covertly that it will lead us to base desires, away from God and goodness, that it will make us selfish and greedy, lazy and lustful. Have you ever noticed when you work with heartfelt pleasure how much more productive you are? That when pleasure reaches your heart in any kind of loving way, you're kinder in your loving, more generous, and more easily satisfied? Heartfelt pleasure can guide us to acts of kindness and gratitude, open us to greater depths of nourishing desires, compassion, and grace. So take a minute to just consider pleasure and how you have related to pleasure in your life. Is it something that you have felt was a little bit sinful, a little bit naughty, that somehow, if it wasn't struggle, then it wasn't noble? Just different concepts to consider. Now, after you've done that, just kind of leave it aside. And now you're just going to notice how it shows itself up in your week. Now, the energy you're being asked to embody during this week, as consistently as possible, is compassion. Where are we going to get that? There. Okay. Compassion carries an awareness of the vulnerabilities of others and ourselves. There's an empathy which allows for gentle, kind approach, nudging us to move away from the need to blame and judge, and move towards the desire to simply understand. Choose compassion. So, one of the really valuable things about working with an intentional attitude is it gives you the opportunity to really pull in that energy and activate it within your being. And then notice how it shifts your perception. Okay? What does compassion feel like? You've probably already felt it or experienced it coming from someone else. But some of the adjectives here, I think, are really valuable. Empathy, gentle, kind approach, moving away from judgment and criticism. And I also find it interesting that in the previous card on pleasure, it talks about when you are experiencing more pleasure, that it guides us to greater depths of nourishing desires, compassion, and grace. So these You see, you're already being very linked together here. Now, brilliantly, the awareness activity card is something that you are being asked to deliberately do as much as possible during the week, while you are staying in a state of compassion and while you are just noticing where pleasure is fitting into this in your week. And it's brilliant. It's positive triggers. So I didn't select these cards deliberately. I randomly selected them, and this is how they're fitting together. Positive triggers. I love it. Begin a list that you'll build throughout the day, or in this case, your week. On it, place the things that make you feel light, spacious, calm, delighted, grounded. Choose things that in some way make you feel good and put you in a state of mind or sensation that you enjoy experiencing, taking you back to pleasure. Choose things that elicit a sense of well-being. Surround yourself and engage with as many of these things and activities as possible. Notice how it affects your mood, perception, posture, and breathing. Notice how your attitude towards yourself and others change. When I think of positive triggers, I think of things that are basically going to lighten me up. They're going to give me more pleasure. They're going to get me out of drudgery, out of heaviness, out of feeling, it's just another mundane kind of day. So I think about, for me, music. What have I not listened to in a long time that I know lifts me up? What kind of dancing have I not done in a long time that I know lifts me up? Is there a scent that I like to wear, or a particular piece of jewelry, or a scarf that reminds me of a wonderful time in my life that was just really delicious? So you're being asked to deliberately surround yourself with as many of these things that you can identify as mood lifters, as energy lifters, something that lightens you up. The way I would put this together for the week is this. You're being asked to remember from time to time and notice whenever issues of pleasure or not experiencing pleasure comes up. Just notice where that comes. You're being asked to embody this state of compassion, this gentleness, this easiness. So you can't really embody and embrace the idea of pleasure being a positive thing if you're being self-critical, or if you're being critical of other people who are having a good time, for example. So what do you do if you find yourself not being able to stay in a state of compassion? And what do you do if you find yourself getting out of the concept of being able to enjoy and have pleasure with your daily activity in your life? Well, activate more of your positive triggers. Stay aware of those. Use them as much as possible. And especially when you notice yourself falling out of pleasure and falling out of compassion in whatever way you notice that happening in your life. That is your awareness activity. You're going to go in and out of being able to stay with all of it, and that's just fine. That's part of what the experience is, and part of where the self-awareness comes in is you're going to notice when you are not able to do that, and then you get to find out why. So that is it. I'm going to keep this short. Pleasure, compassion, positive triggers. Read it over. If you have questions, don't hesitate to make a comment. I'll be checking in from time to time during the week for comments that come up about this spread. And then on Saturday, possibly Friday night or Saturday, I will be doing a debrief on this, and I'll be asking you questions about how your week has gone and specific questions to get you to kind of peel apart some of your experiences and maybe come up with some self-awareness around them. On that note, my friends, I leave you. Take care. Have a great week.